The government will not protect you from the coming financial collapse. And the financial media will not warn you. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. Check out my podcast at healthrangerreport.com and my survival gear product line at rangergear.com. Here's what's happening. You got to go back to, look, a lot, people have short memories these days, but if you go back to 2008 and even the years before that, 2001 through 2008, right after the dot-com crash during the big rise of the housing bubble, the mortgage debt bubble, and the rise of the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme. Here's what you need to know. You better go back and study this, because Bernie Madoff ran a $50 billion Ponzi scheme that involved hundreds of thousands of people, royalty all over Europe, major banks. He ran NASDAQ. He was the head of the NASDAQ, and he was a felon, okay? The markets are rigged. Everybody covers up. There was an investigator, an independent guy named Mr. Markopoulos, I believe, and he put together this case against Bernie Madoff, spent probably 1,000 hours doing the research, getting the evidence. He handed it over to the SEC years ahead of when it all finally came down, and the SEC buried it. The SEC is corrupt. The SEC is organized financial crime. Just so you know the truth. The Wall Street Journal covered it up. The Wall Street Journal is part of the financial media that is all about covering up the truth of the big financial crimes. Yeah, they'll report the little small guys who got caught, went to jail, but they won't report the truth about the really big crimes. When everybody is getting screwed, they will look the other way. They will bury the story. They will silence it. Not just Wall Street Journal, but Forbes. Forbes was named the most evil news publisher of the year in 2015 by evil.news. Forbes publishes totally false and fabricated information. They do it routinely. They are a discredited financial rag. And they're part of that same system, that cover-up of Wall Street, which also includes the rating agencies, Dun & Bradstreet, or whoever all the rating agencies are, the Main Street, Wall Street ratings agencies, all engaged in massive fraud. They'll rate, remember during the housing bubble, they rated all those crap, garbage debt instruments, they rated them A+. Or AA, or whatever the high rating is. They rated them all high, even though they were filled with junk debt that was sure to collapse because people were taking on loans to houses that they could not afford. Remember the no income, no job applications? They were called Ninja, no income, no job applications, Ninja loans. So if you understand anything about history of the financial markets and the cover-ups and the crimes, you should know that when the next big one is coming, you are not going to be given a warning. The financial media will never admit the markets are overvalued. No matter how high they get, you're always going to be told on CNBC and in the pages of Barron's magazine and Wall Street Journal, wherever, you're always going to be told this is a great time to buy. That's what they're going to say that endlessly, no matter what's happening. There is never a point where the government or the financial media is going to say, hey, by the way, this is a great time to sell because the markets are irrationally overvalued. So this should tell you something. You are going to have to make the decision to get out of the markets on your own, independently. You are going to have to go against the crowd to save your financial future. If you believe the system and you believe what they're telling you, you are going to be completely financially screwed, just like every single client of Bernie Madoff. $50 billion vanished. $50 billion in what people thought were their assets disappeared. Actually, they never really existed, but they thought they did because they had them on paper. $50 billion. And this is what will happen to you if you don't get out of the markets. You need to sell against the madness of the crowds. You need to stop following the lemmings as they're marching and leaping off the cliff. You need to go against the tide. You need to rock the boat. I mean, what other metaphor can we throw out there for you? This is the time. Do not believe what the mainstream media is telling you or what the government is telling you. Now, if you get down to it, why do they have to continue this incessant facade of financial illusion and hype and fairy tale thinking and irrational exuberance or optimism? Why? Why do they have to continue this? The answer is because the markets are buoyed only by psychology and faith, not by any underlying fundamentals. The fundamentals have been obliterated. They're gone. The middle class has been destroyed. Joblessness is at an all-time high in America. The number of people unemployed has never been this high. The government numbers, the official unemployment numbers, are pure fiction. The central banks have run out of tools to manipulate the markets. They are backed into a corner. Times are getting desperate, and yet the markets are still so crazily overvalued that there's a huge downside here in front of us, probably a 50% correction in the Dow Jones, for example, is what's in our near future. And in China, it's even worse. China, did you know the average PE ratio of stocks in China is about 60 to 1? 60 to 1. That means China is probably looking at about a 70 to 75% market crash. Can you imagine what's going to happen when that takes place? How the ripple effect? I mean, when China loses just 3 or 4% overnight, the U.S. markets go crazy. The European markets go crazy. Can you imagine when China begins to unravel 70% of its bubble valuation? Do you know what's going to happen in the American stock market? Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea how much inventories have been overpurchased? That there is virtually, well, I can't say none. There's a greatly diminished pipeline of manufacturing now in place because the retailers aren't ordering as much because the people aren't buying as much. You look at the Baltic Dry Index, for example, continues to plummet to record lows. That's a marker of the transportation traffic on large cargo ships in the Atlantic region. It by itself, it doesn't tell the whole story, but it's one indicator of what's happening globally. I don't know how many more ways to say this. Let me tell you my motivation. Obviously, I don't have any financial involvement in your situation. I tell you this because I hate to see innocent people hurt. And I've been down this road before. I remember in 1998 and 1999, I was telling people, get out of the .com market. Sell drcoop.com. Sell excite.com. Get these stock valuations are nuts. They were based on no fundamentals whatsoever. And I remember these morons from the American Enterprise Institute at the time. I think it was James Glassman wrote a book entitled Dow 35,000, where he argued that the laws of economics have changed forever. No more do you have to pay attention to fundamentals. Stocks just go up because they do. Basically, that was the argument. These people are morons. And so I warned everybody that I knew. And of course, people don't listen when everybody in the media is telling them stocks are going to go up forever. And their stockbrokers telling them it's going to go up forever. You're all going to get rich. This is your retirement. All you got to do is buy .com stocks and they're going to go skyrocket. You're going to be able to live off of this forever. You won't have to work a day in your life. This is the kind of stuff people were being told. And I was telling them, no, the laws of economics have not changed. This is going to come crashing down. You better get out. You better sell now while you can. Take your gains and convert it to cash by selling. And then you can leave this roulette table as a winner instead of a loser. And most people did not. They did not do that. And so now here we are, 16 years later. There are a lot of people who sadly have had to take on jobs in their retirement years. They might be 65, 70 years old. They're working. They're working a job. They're getting a paycheck because their life savings, their retirement fund was wiped out in the dot-com crash of 2001. You probably know some people like that. Maybe you are among them. I hope not. And the same story in 2008. A lot of people got just murdered in the market, and they ended up having to work another job because their retirement, their life savings was wiped out, gone. I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to be safe. I want you to be able to take your earnings, set them aside, and live on your retirement if that's what you have. Take what you have now. Sell, sell, sell. Get out of the market before you get murdered. Now, there might be some more upside to this. I'm not saying that it can't go up. It still could go up, but there's a big plunge coming, and it's impossible to time it. It's impossible to pick the correct timing. And obviously, I'm not your financial advisor. I can't determine your specific risk appetite or your portfolio profile or anything like that. So, try to work with a professional who understands what I'm saying here. Let them hear this audio, if you will. It's too easy for many of those professionals to get caught up in the herd mentality that markets are always going to go up. No, they're not. Sometimes there are huge, massive corrections that can set you back a decade or 20 years even. Look at the market crash of Japan in, I believe, 1989. The recovery from that took, 20 years, something like that? In some ways, it hasn't fully recovered even to this day. So be careful, folks. The government will not protect you. The SEC will not protect you. The media will not warn you. If you want to stay informed, read newstarget.com and also collapse.news. Thanks for listening. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. Take care.